Hi everyone, and welcome to Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. Ooh, today we're going to make this beaded toggle clasp. Now I found these to be rather intimidating when I first saw them. I thought, oh, can I do that? Well, sure enough, I can, and I can teach you how to do it too. You ready? Let's go. First step is to make a circle of these seed beads. I am using size 11 delicas and size 15 rokais. So these are a little bit smaller, and also they're rounded on the edge. So to start this, I'm going to start with the 11 delicas, and I'm going to make a circle, super simple little circle. Oh, and I already made a circle. There we go. All you do to make this circle is to just pick up 40 beads. And that is what I did. I picked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just keep going till you get to 40. And 40 is an important number. It could be 38, it could be 42, but you want to make it an even number. And this will be the basic size of your toggle clasp. Both of these I used 40, so that gives you an idea of how big a 40 toggle would be. So pick up those 40 beads, string them down to the end of your beading thread, and then go back through them again. And you'll end up with a circle. Come on. I don't want those beads on there. A circle like this one. Now it's very important too that this does not be too tight. Wait, let me get where you can see it. Don't want to make that circle too tight. You want to be able to lay it flat and no buckling. I made another one to show you what a bad circle would look like. This is when you tie it up too tight and the beads are buckling with each other and they're overlapping each other, so that's too tight. This is just about right. It could even be a little bit looser. We want a nice loose circle like that. So to begin that peyote stitch, I would assume if you're ready to make a beaded toggle, you probably already learned peyote, but I will remind you. So here's my circle. I've tied a knot right here. I'm going to go through one bead, just get myself started. And then I'm going to pick up one bead. Let me get in the middle, excuse me. I'm going to pick up one bead, and I'm going to skip a bead. My thread's coming out here. I'm skipping this bead, and I'm going into the very next bead. And this will be the third row of peyote. When you're doing peyote, the first string of beads that you put on, that equals row 2 and row 1. So 1 and 2 are already on here. This circle is 1 and 2, and now I'm adding row 3. Pick up another bead, skip this bead, and go into the very next one. And on this one too, just like I said before, you want to keep it nice and loose. We're going to add tighter beads to this, so we want to keep this one loose. So your beads might want to lay up like this on end. Keep them flat. Keep them in this sort of an orientation. Don't let them get too tight. And we're going to keep doing that. Pick up one bead, skip a bead, go through the next bead. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, go through the next bead. We're going to do that all the way around. Skip a bead, go through the next bead. Now we're at the very end of our circle. Again, we're going to pick up a bead. We'll skip a bead. We'll go through the next bead, but then we do the step that's called a step up. So besides this bead, we're going through the next bead up. And if we wanted to, at this point, we could add a 4th row. But this is all we need for now. 3 rows. Don't worry about this tail. We'll deal with that later. So there's 3 rows, laying flat, not too tight, all wonderful and beautiful to do. Now we can start cinching this rather loose circle up by using the size 15 rokai beads. These are 15 rounded beads. And now we're going to start getting a little tighter because this is going to make it narrow up for the center of our toggle. But I'm still doing the same thing. It's still plain old peyote. I'm skipping this bead and going through the next up bead. This will be row 4, just so you know. Pick up another one of those size 15s. Skip a bead, go through the next bead. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, go through the next bead. Now I want these rokais, these size 15s, to get a little bit tight because I want this to start curling up and building in, but I don't want the yellow beads to get tight. So watch out for that. You want a little bit of tightness, but not too much. As you go around, just doing your circular peyote, thing. Keep the yellows loose, start tightening up those oranges. We're going to do 3 rows of these size 15s. You can see what we've done. I've done 1, 2, 3 rows of the orange. I had 1, 2, 3 rows of the yellow. And I'm just going to finish this up, and you can see how it's starting to turn like into a collar. Because these 15s are smaller, that's going to make your circle smaller. And that's what we want. We want to make a 3-dimensional donut type of shape like in this finished toggle. So I've got a couple more beads to add here. I'm going to pick up one of the size 15s. I'm going through the next bead. I'm going to get that nice and snug in there to make sure my collar stays snug. Snug that in there. And then I need 1 more of those size 15s to finish this 3rd row. So this time I would normally go through just this bead, but this is the end of the row. So I have to go through this bead and do a step up. There, I went through that hole and I'm doing the step up, so I'm going through the next bead as well. See that? There we go. And now we're going to go back to the size 11s. And we're going to do 2 more rows of the size 11s around here. And since we've done our step up, easy enough to start picking up the size 11s, skip a bead, go through the next bead. So here we have our little collar that I've created. It started with 3 rows of 3 rows of 11s, 1, 2, 3. And then I did 3 rows of these little size 15s. Let's see if I can find a place where I can count them. 1, 2, 3 rows. And then I did only 2 rows of these size 11s. Let me get this where I like it. Yeah, that'll do. See, 1, 2 rows of the size 11s. And now it's time to zip this baby up. If you look at the edgeways here, because I had 3 rows and then I have 2 rows, these match up with each other. So this bead is going to slip into that slot. This bead is going to slip into that slot like a zipper. And I'm going to start zipping that up. So I'm coming out of this bead right here, go through that bead, and I will pull this nice and tight. Get that little tail piece out of there. And as I pull it tight, you can see there's hardly any seam at all that you can see. Then I go to the opposite side and I go through the bead over there and zip it up. And as I pull it tight, is that kind of not a cool effect? It's like there's no seam at all. It just becomes one. Going back and forth between these 2 sets of size 11s, and we zip this baby up. And that's why the rows are important. There's 3 rows of 11s. There were 3 rows of, oops, I'm going to knot my own thread. There were 3 rows of 15s, and then 2 rows of 11s, and that gets this all to line up just perfectly. So this is what it looks like when it's all zipped up into a nice little tube. And the next thing to do is to make the pretty edge, just like I did on these ones. Just make a pretty decorative edge. You can do a lot of things. This one I used like a size 8 Crystal Passions. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a little picot edge. What I did was just pick up 3 of these little orange guys. And see, this would be the slot where a bead would go in. So I'm just going to skip that one, kind of like peyote, and put those 3 little guys, hey, no hitchhikers. There we go. Right in there. And I can keep doing that all the way around. Pick up 3 more of these little guys. Call this a picot edge. I don't know why. I suppose it's a French term. I don't know. I'm going to skip this spot right here and go into the next bead. Make sure I've got it where you can see it. I do have a knot in my thread here because I ran out of thread and I added some more. But that's all right. Even that knot will go through my little size 15s. We can make that picot edge all the way around. At some point, I want to be able to connect this toggle to something else, to a bracelet or a necklace or something like that. So we need to add some kind of connector on the edge. On this one, I just sewed on an oval jump ring. Super easy. I think, I did an oval jump ring here. For this one that I'm working on right now, though, I'm actually going to add a little bit of a tab onto there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to peyote a little tiny strip. So this time, instead of doing my picot edge here, I'm going to add a bead, just like when I was doing all my other peyotes. Add a bead. I'm going to add another bead, skipping that space there, and going here. And now I'm going to come back the other direction. I don't want too wide a band here. So I'm going to turn my toggle over. I'm going to be placing a bead right here. So I'm going to pick up a bead, go through this one. And this is all even count peyote, by the way. Pick up a bead and go through this one. Ta-da! And this is how we can add a little tab onto your toggle. So there's more than one way to do this. You could just make a loop. You could add, like a dozen beads and loop it around again. Turn that over. This would be called flat peyote at this point. And make that tab as long as you need it to be. See how it's loose here? I'm going to pull on that bead and tighten it up. And make that as long as you need to be. If you need to loop it over a jump ring or loop it over a bracelet, or you could even just keep extending this, make it a little wider, and turn it right into your bracelet as one continuous unit. That's cool. So you can do that. And you know what? I have one of these that's already done. Ha-ha! In fact, this is basically what your finished product is going to look like. So on this one, I've finished the tab. I've gone out a little bit further. I could go a little further so I can attach it to something by rolling it over and sewing it down. I've finished all the picot edge along here. I even put picot edge on the tab. And that is the basics of how you make the actual circle or ring part of your toggle. Now you want to know how to make the bar, right? I hope you do. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you can do it. It's not as hard as you'd think. It's beautiful, isn't it? To figure out the length of the bar, I want my bar to be more than twice the width of this. And I decided that 18 beads across would be good. So, I do have one. What do you know? So there's 18 yellow beads, 18 the size 11s. This would constitute actually a row of 9 because, like I said, these are the first 2 rows. So we've got a row of 9 and another row of 9 to make the first 2 rows 18 beads. So this is going to be 9 by 8, I believe is what I did. But again, we're just going to do peyote, and I hope you already know how to do peyote, but I'm going to give you a quick refresher. This is flat peyote, flat, even count peyote. And here's that mantra again. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, go through the bead. And it makes this like T shape, just like we did before. That little tail piece out of my way. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, go through a bead. And there are tricky ways to start peyote stitch too. That sometimes this is really hard to get it going, get it started, especially with these little size 11s. But once you've done it a few times, it gets pretty easy. So that's where we're going. We're going to do more flat peyote. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, go through a bead. And you'll just keep doing that. Maybe I should do this whole row. It's only 9 beads long. And we've got 4 already. Here, I'm just going to do this so you can know how to make the turnaround. Skip a bead and go through a bead. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, skip a bead, and go through a bead. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, go through the bead. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, go through a bead. There, that is 3 rows of flat even count peyote. Now we turn that over in our hand. I turn it over in my hands. I suppose you can go back the way you were, and you do the same thing again. Pick up a bead, skip a bead, and go through a bead. Aha! And we're going to make a flat piece of this. Oh gosh, how big did I make that? Here it is. Here it is, all done. This is 9 beads wide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 beads wide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And 12 beads, 12 rows this way. And we got to make those even as well because we want them to match up just like they did on the ring. So I've got a down bead here and an up bead here, a down bead here, an up bead here. That's so that I can roll this into a tube and zip it up just like we did the circular one we did. So I've got my thread coming out here. I'm going to go through here and zip. Go across the chasm there, go through that one, pull it tight, go across the gap and go to that one and pull it tight. Sometimes I can even get 2 of these beads in one swoop. I'm not being very dexterous today. Maybe I can do it. There, I went through both beads to go across the gap. And that can make it go a little faster for you if you're dexterous enough. And we zipped that whole thing up. And you notice you can't really even see the seam where I zipped it. I love that with peyote. And here I have one that's already done. Ta-da! Oh, and I still have the needle attached. I did good. So this one's all zipped up. And I've come out this bead here. So there's still just a little bit of a gap there. I don't like that gap. So I'm going to close it up with just an extra stitch. Stitched in there and stitch down here. Make sure those get together. Now you can embellish this however you want. Some people put a row of brick stitch across the top. Some people put nothing at all across the top. I like, since I did picot stitch on the other bead, on the other part of the toggle, the round part, I'm going to do picot stitch here too. So I'm going to pick up 3 beads. And I came out this bead right here. I'm going to go down through the next bead and make a little tiny picot. And if these aren't laying right, you just tell them where to go and make them lay right. Then I'm going to go up through the next bead. Get all those extra wisps out of my way. Grab 3 of those little size 15s. 1, 2, 3. Down through there. Make this cute little picot top on here. Go up through the next bead. 1, 2, 3. You can see this doesn't take very long. It's not a very big piece. Ta-da! And there, I've got a little picot edge all the way around the outside of that. Now we got a couple of things we can do. I want to go up through the next bead again. I'm not adding any beads, not doing anything fancy. I'm just going to go up through that next bead in the line without picking up that silly little picot. And I'm going to go all the way down through the center of this. Come on, all the way down without picking up anything. And drop my needle. All the way through the center. And come up and do it again. Add more picots on this end. Go down through a bead just to make life easier for me.
Click on the link in the description below to subscribe to our email list and learn more about jewelry making techniques and supplies.
Up through a bead. Pick up 3 picots. 1, 2, 3. These are size 15s. Down. Pick up 3. Oh, wait, we got to go up through here first. There we go. Pick up 3. 1, 2, 3. Go down. Go up. And 3 more. 1, 2, 3. Now you could be happy with this just the way it is, or you can do a little bit more, because why not? The clasp can be the most important part of your design that you're making here. So I've got a nice solid thread coming out of there. I'm going to go down through the middle again. Come out this end. I like a little fancy right here on the end. Now, a lot of people would put some kind of crystal, a preciosa or a crystal passions crystal there. On this one, I'm just going to use this little tiny orange druck. So I'm going to go through the orange druck bead. Hello. I'm going to pick up one of my little orange size 15s, and I'm not going through that one again. That's going to be my stopper bead. I'm skipping the little orange bead and going through the orange druck here. And I'm going all the way down through the middle. And I make that nice and tight to make that little fun little end on the end. And then I can do it again on this side. And if I want, I can, if I'm not feeling confident in how strong my fire line is, and it's strong thread, mind you, very strong thread, I might go back and forth through this a couple of times. But it's not really necessary. So I can go back down through this, but I need to add some way to attach this toggle to my bracelet or necklace or whatever. So I'm actually going to convince this needle to come out somewhere in the middle. I don't even care where, just somewhere close to the middle. Don't break any beads, that's bad news. Come on, there we go. And I pull all my end beads nice and tight so they're down into the middle of their picots. And I'll do just like I did on the round toggle part. The circular toggle part is I'll start making myself a little strap of flat peyote coming out the side, a little hiccup, if you will, by skipping a bead and adding a bead, skipping a bead and adding a bead. Looks like I'm not quite in the center. That's right. You're getting the concept. And then I back up on it again, pick up a bead, skip a bead and add a bead. And you can see where I'm going here, making that nifty little strap to attach to my bracelet or whatever. And of course, I have one that's already done. Ta-da! And I even added the picot edge to the edge of that. So there's my bar. There's my toggle. And we have created a toggle clasp for your bracelet or whatever you need it to be for. Ta-da! And we could have used jump rings. We could have used plain old loops. You can do it any way you like. And of course, these ends are going to get woven back in, just like you usually do on all your seed beading projects. And if you have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to share with us, please let us know at firemountaingems.com. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you make lots of beautiful toggles. Like, share, and subscribe. Happy beading!